Hello, everyone. Habari Gani, friends. Welcome to the Cozy Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. If you are here, please let me know if you can hear me, because being heard is very important. I see 4 people are here. Ooh, got fluff on my face. Just put in the chat if you can hear me, please. That would be great. So this is round 4 of the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. And welcome, my name is Njeri, if we haven't met before. So hi, welcome to Onyx Pages. The Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon is an event that I do every year. It is designed to have us reflect on the books that we've read this year using the principles of Kwanzaa. So Kwanzaa, as you may know, is an African American holiday. It is a secular holiday, but for some people, the practice of Kwanzaa has elevated to spiritual practice. For me, it is an opportunity to reflect. It also is a framework that I use in my life. And so I like the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon because it provides me with an opportunity to kind of think about these principles, think about the way that they influence me, the way that they influence my reading, and also the way that they influence my life. And I love that Kwanzaa takes place in the 7 days, starting right after Christmas and ending on New Year's. And that typically is a good time for me to focus on the year that has passed, the year that is coming up. It's when I do my vision boarding stuff. So there's some really good timing. So today's principle, I'm just going to find it. So Kwanzaa has 7 days and there are 7 principles. There is a kinara that we light. We are getting a custom-made kinara. We're actually picking it up today, so I don't have it to show you, but I will probably show it to you in subsequent videos. Good morning, everyone. So good morning, Pat. Hi. Good morning, Regina Renee. Good morning, TRN. Good morning, My Written Voice. Good morning, T. Morgan. And how do I feel non-American Africans adopting this practice? Do you mean like how do I feel about non-African Americans adopting this practice? So I'm not really religious about who practices Kwanzaa. So I'm fine with whoever wants to practice Kwanzaa, but, and there is a but, Kwanzaa is designed to center African people, African American. It's an African American tradition. It's not an African Canadian tradition. It came out of the U.S. So, I mean, as a Canadian practicing Kwanzaa, there's a difference because I'm not American. But I think that if you practice Kwanzaa and you're not African American or you are not Black, then it's important to make sure that you remember that the purpose of the purpose of the creation of the celebration was and is to center the experiences of African American, African descendant, African peoples. Now, I'm not really going to get into the politics of Kwanzaa. I will mention a couple of things, but this is not what we're going to do on the talk. So one issue is that Dr. Karenga, who created Kwanzaa, was arrested for sexual violence against women and a number of other things. And so I practice Kwanzaa very mindfully, knowing that its founder is an ass. So I know that, and I choose to separate the person from the practice. Not everybody does that. I do that. The second is that I know that there are critiques of Kwanzaa, that it is a made-up celebration. My answer to that is, well, what celebration isn't? At some point, everything that we celebrate during the holidays was created by a human, whether that human believed that there is divine intervention involved, or whether it was the creation of an institution or whatnot, right? So at some point, someone believed that something was true and created a celebration about it. That is true for every celebration we celebrate during the holidays. So that's my belief. Um, and then I think another critique of Kwanzaa is that it's a creature of the diaspora. It's created by um, Black folks in North America, and it universalizes Africa, and the many different traditions and principles and beliefs, right? So folks will say that those who celebrate Kwanzaa in a very irresponsible way are also doing so in a way that really essentializes and narrows the entire continent of Africa, which is problematic, and not only problematic, but it is and it is one of the ways that we continue to be colonized, right? By freezing African peoples into a pre-modernity place. I do not do that. My practice of Kwanzaa is very present. It's actually more political than it is spiritual, um, but that is how I practice. So I hope that answers the questions that you have. Yeah. So um, no problem. Typos. I'm a typo person. Welcome. I think you're the first Sudanese person who I've had participate in the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. So, and feel free to share your thoughts about Kwanzaa TRN. I would love to know what you think. Um, yeah, don't get me started with all celebrations are made up. They're made up by someone at some point. Good morning. Um, Thank you, Eva. Thank you. Okay, so here we are. I am going to put in the chat and show it. So the first day of Kwanzaa is Umoja, which means unity. And each of the Kwanzaa principles has a name. And then it's got a name in Swahili, it's got a name in English. I believe all the Kwanzaa names are Swahili, I believe so. And then each of the principles is associated with a explanation, or more of an explanation of the theme. And so the first day is the day when we light the unity candle. And this is to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. And so again, to the question that TRN had, when we're talking about the race, we're talking about African descended people, however you use that. And this year, Kwanzaa, I'm celebrating Kwanzaa in a very cozy fashion. You will see multiple pajamas. There will be no makeup. This is just a chill time. All right. So for me, the principle of Umoja, or unity, has a very, very specific meaning. So as a Black queer woman, um, unity has always been a challenge to me, because one of the things that I experience living as an adult Black queer woman in Canada is that I there are very few places where where I feel comfortable, or I feel that it wouldn't be a risk to be all of myself at once. So sometimes when I'm in queer spaces, it's very clear to me that the queerness that is central is this version of white queerness, right? Um, and so as a Black person, I feel marginal. Then oftentimes when I'm in Black spaces, especially around the holidays, but it can be any kind of space. It can be a professional space, or it can be a literary space like Black Booktube, or it can be a community-based space like a Black business. It's very, very clear to me that there is an expectation. There's like compulsory heteronormativity, right? So um, it is assumed that if you are a woman, you are married to a man or want to be married to a man. And so I experience feeling marginal there. And so oftentimes I experience not feeling fully central and fully free to be all of who I am, no matter where I am, right? So the reason why I really enjoy unity as a principle is because it reminds me that I shouldn't have to sacrifice any aspect of myself in order to um, be loved, welcomed, cared for, valued. Um, and that's important, right? So we can't have unity and homophobia and queerphobia and transphobia. You can't be for the liberation of the race without explicitly focusing on those within the race who are experiencing marginalization, not only by people who aren't African descended or African, but also within our community. And I think that is a harder thing for, I think it's harder for um, social justice oriented Black folks to appreciate that you have to look within, and you have to not only be responsible for the oppressions that people outside of your group perpetuate, but you also have to be responsible for the about you have to be responsible for the things that you perpetuate and that you allow to exist and buy into. So that is constantly something that I reflect on. The other thing that I'm reflecting on this year that is a little bit that's new, a little bit different, is unity within, right? So unity, like not only within my family, not only within my relationship, but also within myself, right? The different selves that we have inside of us, the ones that we show, the ones that we don't show. Um, and so that's something that I've been thinking about. And that's more connected to my spiritual practice, learning more about my ancestors through the stories that my relatives have to share, and also through other means. Um, so that has become a new part of the practice of unity. So, um, so yes, Juanita, thank you for confirming that the names that they're all Swahili. Um, so the way that the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon works, it is collaborative. I'm not going to have any guests this year because burnout, but I would love for you to think about the books that you've read this year. And you can be a content creator or not, it doesn't really matter. But if you're here and you're watching, please put in the chat the names of the titles of any books that you've read this year that remind you of or that take up some of the themes of unity. And then I'll put those up on the video, like in the little comment bar. I have a few books that I'm going to talk about this year. These are not the only books that I've read this year that remind me of unity. Actually, one of the books that I'm going to talk about, I've read many times, but not this year. But these are books that, for me, reflect the elements of the theme of unity that are very important to me. So while I'm talking about my books, please feel free to share your books. This live is only going to be half an hour, so it's only going to be 15 more minutes because I want to actually practice Kwanzaa outside of, not off camera. So I'm going to be doing that. All right. So I have not, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, Regina Renee. Sorry, Tommy is still sleeping. This is literally the first book that I was going to talk about. And I saw it. So Regina Renee and I are going to talk about Butter Honey Pig Bread. So Butter Honey Pig Bread by Francesca Ekwuasi is it's quite probably, yes, it is probably my number one book for the year. And it is definitely one of the best books I've read in my life. This is a debut novel. It is fiction. It is like wonderful. It's got the style of magic that I like, which is very subtle, what's called magical realism. Um, and it's Black speculative fiction. It's written by a Nigerian author who currently lives in Canada in the Maritime provinces. And this tells the story of two twins, Kende and Taiwo. And if you love the art is Brianna. What is her name? I keep on forgetting, but she's a Trinidadian artist, and she's Brianna McCarthy. And I love her. I love her art. I would love to own a piece of her art. Um, so anyhow, um, so this tells a story of two twins, Kende and Taye, and they were born in Lagos, born to a mother who believes that she is an Ibanje, and it tells the story of these two twins um, as they separate, because as they separate in their teenage years, um, sort of not necessarily following a crisis, but in the years following the aftermath of a crisis that happened to one of them. So the twins end up becoming separated in emotion, in distance, in geography. But they come back together, and this story tells the story about their journeys as they come back together, and as they deal with and engage with their mother, um, who believes that she is an Ibanje. And throughout the story, there is so much um, tenderness, there's pain, there's healing. But the reason why this book reminds me of Umoja is a couple of things. If you look at the idea of striving for and maintaining unity in the family, everybody in this family, in their own way, and not only in this family, the twins and their mom and their people, but in their community, and also in their chosen families. One of them is engaged. Um, they are really trying, right? They are really, really trying to come back together, to understand each other, to understand their mother, to connect, right? To heal the deep, deep wounds that have happened in their family. And there are a lot of queer characters in this story, and one of my favorite characters, it's a side character, and he is queer, and he has to deal with being in a very homophobic family. So there are lots of moments where you have queer characters interacting with each other, but also interacting with het characters. And you see this sort of tension that happens when they try to reach out to each other and try to be connected. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So this is the first book. I'm glad that you mentioned it, Regina Renee, that reminds me of unity, specifically as we talk about queerness in the Black communities. All right. All right, let's see. Okay, let's just get some of your comments. This is why I feel that Kwanzaa is interesting, because Swahili names are used, East African, when most African Americans, descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, are West African. So you are not alone in that view, TRN. A lot of people think that. A lot of people have mentioned that. And I mean, I've also heard critiques about the colors used in the candles. I've heard critiques about the cloth that's used. So some people on their Kwanzaa altars will use kente cloth without really understanding what kente cloth is, or what the patterns on fabrics are. So So one of the critiques of the celebration is that it is a bit of a mismatch of different, stereotypical African things, right? Um, and again, this is not to debate, but just to recognize, right? Part of practicing. I don't know if you're new to my channel, but I talk about reading with purpose. Part of practicing anything purposefully is about seeing all of it, right? Not only seeing the good parts, but also seeing the parts that might still need resolution. Um, and yeah, you raise a good point. There are lots of things to be said about Kwanzaa for sure. Hence, we can agree on the Pan-African unity when it comes to this celebration. Yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about it for sure. So we both had butter honey pig bread. And Eva, yes, puts book into cart. Put it in twice. Buy it for a friend. It is a beautiful, stunning, stunning book. The Washington, D.C. Kwanzaa Collective has a Kwanzaa calendar that they develop each year. I should check that out. I went to a Kwanzaa celebration last year. It was online. It was really good. It's probably, I think they do it on the last day. But yeah, very cool. Yes, please add to your TBR. Okay. Oh, thank you, my friend. Thank you for sending love right back at you. Okay, I see a few more books, but I'm going to go to my second one and then we can get to your comments, TRN. So please, in the chats, just enter any books that remind you of Umoja, unity. Okay, the next book is The Sisters of Reckoning, and this is the second book in a duology written by Charlotte Nicole Davis. Oh, what I should say about Butter Honey Pig Bread is I have an interview with the author on my channel as part of the Written with Purpose author series that I did this year. Francesca is absolutely lovely, and her voice is so soft. She's like an angel. She's very, very lovely. So you can watch that. And if you want, you can also watch my review of the book. The Sisters of Reckoning, I also interviewed Charlotte Nicole Davis as part of the Written with Purpose situation. And so Sisters of Reckoning is the second book in the duology. I think it's all the way over there. The first book is Good Luck Girls. And this tells the story of a group of girls. You can see the cover for Good Luck Girls here. It's a group of girls who are taken from their families and put into welcome houses, which are effectively like it's human trafficking. They're brothels. And the welcome houses service men. And they are basically sold into sex work in order to pay off the debts of their families following a revolution, right? And both books, I think, exemplify unity, but this one, The Sisters of Reckoning, there is a revolution in play. And as with any kind of political uprising, you will have different groups of people who believe slightly different things, but might be able to come together in a temporary strategic alliance. And that is the element of the Sisters of Reckoning that I think really focuses on unity. And also, there are a lot of themes around. There's a very, very, there are queer characters here. And Charlotte doesn't really go into like naming the sexual orientations, but there is gender diversity in the characters. There is sexual diversity in the characters. And Charlotte does not shy away from that. And in fact, in my interview with Charlotte, they talked about the importance of making sure that stories about powerful girls include all girls, right? All girls. And that there is it is essential to have trans girls and it's essential to have non-binary young people included in stories about girls. And so Charlotte made a point of ensuring that their characters would be representative. And so that's in the characters, but also in the theme. In the themes, what happens in this book is, now most of the characters are Black. They're not all Black, but most of the characters are Black. The main character, Aster, is Black, and queer. And we have a revolution that's effectively led by a young Black queer person in this book. And that's amazing. And Charlotte also makes sure that we have to reckon with and deal with the homophobia and transphobia in the actual story. And so it's not like it's just not like they just plunked a character there. But it's like the themes are there. And I just want to point out something that's happening in the moment. So one of the things when I talk about BookTube and unity and how important it is to remember that we have to be all of ourselves at the same time. On StreamYard, whenever you stream a video, it shows you how many people are watching. And it shows you when the numbers go down and the numbers go up. So like right now, 13 people are watching. So hello to the 12 of you other than me. But one of the things that happens on my channel is that whenever I do a series of videos that are obviously queer or that very much focus on talking about transphobia or talking about homophobia, my subscriber count goes down and my view numbers go down. And it's very, very, very obvious. I lost over 100 subscribers during my Written with Purpose series, in which I was very, very purposeful about ensuring that I had authors with queer characters in their books and also queer authors. And so that's why it is so important to me that for this particular principle that I specifically focus on queer inclusion. Okay, let's see. Oh, I also said that because I noticed the numbers of people watching went down briefly when I was talking about queerness, and it's back up. So whether it's correlated, I don't even know, but it was definitely contemporaneous, and that happens a lot. Okay, so TRN, what do you have to say? Your books are P. Clark, Master of Djinn Universe, and my Master of Djinn, I'll just pull it down since you've mentioned it. Okay, so this is what you've mentioned, a Master of Djinn, TRN. So P. Clark is an Instabuy author for me. So if you are putting your TBR carts together or you've got your Sister Sci-Fi website open, a Master of Djinn is what TRN just mentioned. And TRN says, TRN, what are your pronouns? African-American writer managed Was that shade intentional? An African-American writer managed to write so beautifully about my Nubian folklore, and that was heartwarming. I'm glad that you felt that way. I haven't read it yet, so please come back once I've read it next year. Thank you for sharing that. And then tell me, please, why a Master of Djinn reminds you of unity. Okay, I have to go shortly. PJ is amazing, and his first name is Fenderson, which is a beautiful name. Love it. Yes. Okay. So since we're talking about Ring Shout, it was actually one of the books that I had as well. I don't remember. Oh, I think there is a queer character. There are queer characters in here. So Ring Shout, yes, is also a book that reminds me of unity, and also not only unity between people in a revolution, but also unity in terms of within those who are rebelling, right? Like there's so many levels of unity, and then unity within the self, but there's also a unity between otherworldly beings and beings here right? There's a lot of like interdimensional working together that happens in order to get through to the climax of this story. So yes, Ring Shout was one of the ones I was going to talk about, and it absolutely represents unity. Habari Gani, Josh. Happy that you're here. Yeah, and I wanted to just give Josh a shout out because if you haven't watched Josh's bookish voyage, you should. So in Josh's last video, he talked about time travel books that he has read and reread. And one of the things that he did in that was talk about some of his favorite time travel books, one of which is Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. And Josh also gave me a shout out in his video because me and other booktubers who talk about reading critically and reading with purpose have been very helpful to him/you. So Josh, thank you for that recognition. It's very important to talk about the people who have influenced the way that we understand and we read. And I really appreciate your support of my channel. So thank you, and thank you for being here. The queer phobia among our people is heartbreaking, whether in the diaspora or Africa. I agree. A Master of Gin is also on your list of TBRs. Awesome. Thank you for giving me your pronouns. No shade. That's okay. It was a little bit shady. It was a little bit shady. But that's okay. I think it's warranted. It's totally fine. Because I think there's a lot of bad writing. There's a lot of bad writing by North American Black writers about Africa. And I think that we need to be honest about it. And I think we need to hold folks in the diaspora need to hold ourselves accountable to that, even though I think there is a, I think as somebody born in the diaspora, I definitely grasp at the continent because I feel a very like present sense of loss because I don't have, like, there's a point where my knowledge of my lineage gets really faded and then stops. And that's heartbreaking to me. And so I think that many writers are looking for, no, that's not right. Some diasporic writers are, and I don't think this is true for P.J. Clark, because P.J. Clark is extremely responsible in the way he writes about, in particular, like writes about Egypt, but also reimagines African. I think I'm just stumbling because I don't know that his writing has been about anything anywhere other than Egypt, but I haven't read all of his work. But I think that there are some writers who have been irresponsible in the way that they've rendered Africa in their stories, and that's an issue. So, yeah. Okay. But you were shocked to see an American writer who wrote about a culture you grew up with such vivid details. And I think on the other hand, we also have to be careful, because I think that there can be an infantilizing of, I'm going to take your comment down because I'm not speaking specifically to you, TRN, but I have also experienced an infantilizing of diasporic writers as well by readers from whatever motherland we might be talking about, whether it's the Caribbean, whether it is Africa, where there's shock at the ability of diasporic writers to do their work well. And I think that that's also something I want to talk about, because there are many writers in the diaspora who are conscientious, conscious, and ethical about the ways that they take up the world building that is situated either in the Caribbean or in Africa. And I say the Caribbean, recognizing that it's the diaspora, but I say the Caribbean because I'm speaking back to some of the critiques of, it's not behind me, some of the critiques of the stars and the blackness between them, for example. A writer, if you haven't read, a writer who is very good at writing, in particular writing the Caribbean, is my favorite writer, Nalo Hopkinson, and all of her books are here. So if you haven't read her, you should. They're a queer character in Ring Shout in Master of Jin. Yeah, Master of Jin, I totally have a crush on one of the main characters. You're reading a lot of Pan-African books, and of course they remind you of the unity needed among the good. Okay. And unity between Black people and other marginalized people. Yeah, that's really important. I think Sisters of Reckoning does that really well, because there are white characters, and also in Deathless Divide, it's done better in Deathless Divide than it's done in Dread Nation. But there are Asian characters, indigenous characters, Black characters, and white characters in this world. Not There isn't enough treatment of those characters, but you see that interconnection. And also in Trail of Lightning and Storm of Locusts by Rebecca Horse. In Trail of Lightning, there's also Black characters and indigenous characters. And I think there are a lot of writers who are really looking at connecting people from different places with different experiences of marginalization, and seeing what happens when they all engage in an emancipatory exercise. That is also done in Octavia Butler's Adulthood Rights. Parable of the Talents is one of the latest reads, and it absolutely relates to unity, and it also might be your favorite OEB read right now. Yes. Amen. Hallelujah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Unity within the self is what resonates so deeply with me and my reading this year. I'm so glad to hear you articulate this. Well, thank you, Regina Renee. I really appreciate that. I know that you're a very reflective reader and you read with a lot of integrity. So thank you for that compliment. It's high praise coming from you. The way he wrote about the Black part of Egypt was detailed and respectful. I'm glad to hear that. That makes me want to read it more. And TRN, since you're here, are there any Sudanese writers of speculative fiction that you would recommend? I don't think I've read any. I don't think I've read anything by a Sudanese writer that is speculative. So I would appreciate any recommendations you might have. Yes, 100%. Yeah, Midnight Robber is awesome. Your TBR grows every time you're on this channel. We are here to make sure you spend money at Sister Sci-Fi and at Melon and Eclectic. Okay. So yes, that is okay. So let me now talk about two more books. So this is my favorite book by Nalo Hopkinson, and this is The New Moon's Arms. It is the most mundane of all of her novels, all of which I have read several times. And this involves a main character, and her name, I was going to call her Chastity. That's not her name. Her name is Calamity. She's like a 50-something-year-old woman named Calamity. Like, you should just read it because of that. But there's more. Calamity lives by herself on an island, and she one day I think her father passes away, and so she's like really, really upset, and she's went to the funeral, and then she goes onto the beach and she's drunk and she's kind of like dealing with the grief of it all, and then like finds a boy, like a random boy who can't speak, in the water, and she brings him home and tries to help him find his parents and his family, and things happen after that. So yes, but the reason why I like this book is because there's an actual scene in here. There is a conflict where Calamity's homophobia gets called out in like the most. I think this is probably one of the books where I don't think I've ever seen this. I actually don't think I've seen this in any other book where you have family members saying, this homophobia shit you're doing, we're not having it. No, like, done. You are damaging our family. Your homophobia is damaging our family. Like, bet. Okay. Like, that is just the thing that you should see in this book. And that's why I want to share that. And then one more book that is, I didn't intend to talk about, but I will now. One, please hold. Okay. The Summer We Got Free, which I read 2014. I need to read this again. This is a stunning book by Mia Mackenzie. And it's hard. It's a hard book to read, but there are definitely that theme of homophobia in the family and what we do about it, and sexual and queer identities within the family. This is an African-American family, and there's a lot of beautiful magical realism in this. Okay, last two books. I thought I'd be able to do 30 minutes, but we're already 10 over, but I have to go. So this trilogy, The Kingston Cycle by C.L. Polk, it begins with Witchmark, and then there's Soul Star. No, then there's Storm Song, and then there's Soul Star. And if you can see these characters, they're two women, and they're skating in the sunset. So obviously there's a little bit of romance, but it takes us a while to get to their romance. It's in the third book, but the way that they do love, and the way that they try to figure out how to be with each other despite experiencing tremendous trauma. This is a stunning, like, this is a great trilogy, and it definitely talks about unity. And what I love about C.L. Polk's work in this trilogy is that they also take up unity, like political unity, unity among magical communities, race, like they take it up legally, they take it up romantically, just really, really well done. Okay, and then the last book, well, let me take your comments and then we'll do the last book and then we'll say goodbye until tomorrow. Okay, you don't know any Sudanese writers. Okay, that's cool. You have a whole year. You can come back next year for the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon with your recommendations. Okay. Do you know of any translated works by Egyptian writers? Because I do not read Arabic at the moment. But if you have any recommendations for people who are watching who do speak Arabic and read in Arabic, then please do include that. And then you were introduced to C.L. Polk through my series, and you've read the trilogy and Midnight Bargain, and you'll read everything they write. My written voice, thank you for that. I have not, it's up here. I've not read Midnight Bargain yet, but I hope it's good. I expect it to be good. But yes, that's great. Okay, thank you for letting me know that this channel has introduced you to a Insta-Buy author. That makes me happy. There's also an interview with C.L. Polk, but you would have seen that already. Okay. All right. So the last book that I'm going to talk about, it is I hope and I expect that it will take up the themes of unity. Now, I started reading this in the beginning of the year, and then I stopped it. I put it down. And the reason I put it down was because I had a number of other books that I had to read because of series or because of our book club or because of readathons and so on. And because this book is over 400 pages, I knew that I would need to read it in a like really systematic way without any breaks because it's pretty intense world building. So I read the first 100 pages and then I stopped, and I'm going to read it. My goal is to finish this before the end of the year, but I'm going to have to start from the beginning. And that is Master of Poisons by Andrea Hairston. So I've already read some of Andrea Hairston's work, and her writing is very in-depth and complex, and I enjoy reading her work. The first book that I read was Redwood and Wildfire, and that was long. The pacing of her, like her work is slower paced, and so it's more about, like some writers, when you read their stories, it's kind of like you're going to a destination and you're super excited to get there. And then you get there and it's great. And then you're like, wow, that was awesome. I find Andrea Hairston's work to be like sitting in a beautiful garden, right? You're not really going anywhere. But if you spend a minute and focus on what's to your left or to your right, or what's above, what's below, or you smell or you taste or you listen, there's beautiful things to behold. And that's the best way, I think, to read Andrea Hairston's work. Like if you're waiting for some big climax, some epic thing, it'll come, but that's not the most important part of her work. The best part of her work is being there and noticing, like staring at a painting for 15 minutes and then realizing, oh my gosh, I've never seen that shade of orange before. That's amazing. That's what it's like to read her work. So the world is changing. Poison desert eats good farmland. Once sweet water turns foul, the wind blows sand and sadness across the empire. To get caught in a storm is death. To live and do nothing is death. There is magic in the world, but good conjure is hard to find. Jola, right-hand man and spy master of the Lord of the Archesian Empire, is desperately trying to save his adopted homeland even in exile. Awa, a young woman trying to be a powerful griot, tests the limits of her knowledge and comes into her own and world of sorcery, floating skies, kindly beasts, and uncertain men. Awash in the rhythms of folklore and storytelling, and rich with Hairston's characteristic lush prose, Master of Poisons is epic fantasy that will leave you aching for the world it burns into being. Okay? Andrea Hairston's work is like a poem. It's always like a poem, you know? And there is a genderqueer character that we are introduced right in the beginning, and he likes sex, and he's also magic, and I'm ready. I'm ready for this. It also has a map, and it has a table of characters. And she is a theater. She's an actor. She's a playwright. So you'll see that because she has a dramatis personae in the book, and it gives you like when you go to a musical and you get a list of all the characters, right? And then if you look right at the bottom, she has characters that are animals: bees, an elephant, a wild dog, the behemoth, the goats, a horse, the crows, amethyst, a river, and trees. So like the river is a character, the trees are characters. Like it's just wonderful. So Master of Poisons, I'm looking forward to that being my Kwanzaa read. Okay, everyone, I'll get your last comments and then I will wrap up. Master Poisons is so good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It has a map. I'm sold. That's good. All right, everyone. So again, this is the Cozy Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. So tomorrow, these are going to be early in the morning because I want to do them and then enjoy Kwanzaa. So every morning, Eastern time, because I know it's only morning for those of us in certain time zones. So tomorrow morning, I'm actually going to be doing this video at 7 a.m. Eastern. And I know those of you who are in Europe and Africa will be excited for that, because it means it might be easier for you to watch it during your day. But yeah, that's when I'll be doing the videos. And then of course they're available for you to watch afterwards. So again, this is the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon. This was day 1, which is Unity Umoja. And I'll put up the description again: to strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. So thank you very much for joining. Remember always to read with purpose. Habari gani, and I will see you tomorrow. Now, there is another pair of booktubers who are celebrating Kwanzaa as well. We've got Britt Writerly, and we also have Shay with the Hobbies, and they started the Kwanzaa-thon last year. The Kwanzaa-thon is, it's obviously different from the Kwanzaa Reflect-A-Thon, but it's much more active and creative. So while this is cozy, there's going to be like write things, create things, do things. So definitely check out their channel if you want another opportunity to celebrate Kwanzaa through these 7 days, because we do different things and they should all be part of your celebrations if you would like them to be. All right, everyone, read with purpose. Have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.